All right, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us. Let's get started, guys. I want to welcome Kristen. I'm going to have everyone introduce themselves briefly here. We're going to talk about MSBA's latest Advantage partner. Back on, oh gosh, was it 2 weeks ago now? When was the assembly meeting? We approved 3 new Advantage partners. We've got Ross Intelligence and My Case added to our lineup now, and very excited to be talking with Kristen Tyler about Law Clerk. I've been using this platform myself for a little while now, as some of our other staff. It's a great deal of fun, and this is allowing us to do. We're going to chat a little bit about the freelance legal market and the ethics of outsourcing some of your legal work. Just want to remind everyone that you're welcome to chat in your questions or at the Q&A panel. I've got both the YouTube stream open, so I can answer chats there or in Zoom. Feel free to do that. But let's get started. Let's go. Let's start with, and I keep calling you Kristen. I think it's Christy, right? I'm sorry.
No, you're right. It's Kristen. Yeah,
okay.
You're good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about yourself, and
Sure.
maybe give us just a quick introduction of Law Clerk.
Sure. So good morning. I'm Kristen Tyler. I am an attorney. I'm licensed in Nevada. My background is trust and estates, but I'm more excited about my little side hustle that's now become my main hustle. I'm one of the co-founders of a company called Law Clerk. LawClerk.legal is where you can find us. And in a nutshell, what we do is we help connect busy attorneys who need help getting their substantive legal work done. We connect them with our nationwide network of freelance lawyers. We have freelancers in all 50 states, and it's a really great way to connect people, bring the gig economy to legal, and get more work done. So that's it in a nutshell. Thanks for having me on this morning.
Yeah, you bet. And you're welcome to share your screen too if you want to give us a tour just of how the system works.
Sure.
As I say, this is my account here, so I'm actually on the Law Clerk side, meaning that
Right.
I'm not the outsourcer. I'm the outsourcee, I guess.
You are you have an outsourcee account, exactly.
Oh, is that what it's called? Okay.
No, we call it a Law Clerk account. So we call our freelance lawyers. It's a lawyer to lawyer platform, first off.
Yeah.
And we call the freelance lawyers law clerks just to differentiate the two. So yes.
Great. I'll let you.
Do you want me to go ahead and do that screen share now?
Yeah, go ahead. Yep.
Okay.
I will stop my share here.
Okay. All right. So there we go. So this would be the home page, which, like I said, is lawclerk.legal. Ton of great resources on here. At the very top here, you're going to see our ultimate guide to outsourcing. If this is something that you want to do a deep dive into and learn more, this is really the most comprehensive piece we've put out. Has a ton of great examples, issues to consider, talks about the business model of incorporating outsourcing into your workflow rather than hiring the traditional associate. So you can also see we've got some links to some of our great videos, but yeah, there's a ton of information on here. I also always like to highlight the blog. So if you go over here to our blog, first off, you'll see that our most recent blog was announcing our member benefit partnership with Minnesota, which we're really excited about. But then also, if you come over here and you search how to use Law Clerk, what that's going to do is bring up a whole bunch of practice area specific blogs. So if you're a criminal law attorney or you're a family law attorney and you want to know, like, how would I use this in my practice, in my area of law? We've got one on trial prep, discovery. I mean, what lawyer doesn't hate discovery and want some help with that from time to time? Trusted estates, bankruptcy, criminal law, immigration, that's been a big area for us, personal injury, family, general practice. So if you go search how to use Law Clerk on the blog, you're going to find these, and they're really a great resource to help get you started in your specific area. So, but moving on, so let's say you're intrigued and it's something you want to try out. First off, you would come up here and hit sign up. There is no fee to sign up. There is no monthly fee. So just to be a part of this and have it in your back pocket if you want to use it is great. We also have a lot of attorneys who, especially solos, they'll sign up for Yeah, they'll sign up for the I want to hire account so that they can hire help when they need an extra set of hands, but they'll also sign up for the freelancer account. You can have both types of accounts, and a lot of attorneys do, because the practice of law inevitably ebbs and flows, and now it feels like we're all kind of a little bit down, but it's going to pick up again. And so just keep in mind that you're more than welcome to have both types of accounts if that was something that would fit into your your style practice and your ebbs and flows. So sign up is totally free. So I'm going to focus my demo from the hiring side, just so if you're someone who's been burning the midnight oil, working more than you want to, needing help but not knowing where to find it, like that's where we can come in and be a great resource. So I'm going to switch over here to our demo account now. So once you sign up for the hiring account on Law Clerk, this is kind of what your screen's going to look like. Each piece of work is called a project, and occasionally we have new attorneys come on and they post the project, but they post it in terms of like, I need help with this whole case. And absolutely, we can help you with the whole case, but what you're going to want to do is think about segmenting that case into different chunks. So let's think of this in terms of a family law case, okay? So maybe you're going to come in and you're going to say, all right, I have this new client. We got to get this case started. Can you help me draft the complaint? Great. Later on, maybe you need some motion practice. Awesome. You need some research on the issue. You have a research memo. Later on, maybe you reach a settlement agreement. So you need them to type up the property agreement. You would just segment each phase of the work into a different project, but you could absolutely flow the entirety of a case through the system with a freelancer. And as Mike mentioned, one of our coolest features is this feature called Teams, where if you happen to along the way find some freelancers you really like that you want to work with on repeat on an ongoing basis, you can add them to your team. So you could even work with the same freelancer through the entirety of that case on those different distinct projects along the way. So we're talking about a project. What does this look like? How complicated is it? Let's go take a quick peek. So posting a project is 4 steps. You're going to come in, you're going to give it a name. So let's just go with a motion for summary judgment. Perfect. You're going to say how long you want to take applications. You're going to set the deadlines for when the work needs to be completed. Let's say we need this motion next Friday. I always encourage, yes, get an initial draft from the freelancer. And that way you can look at it, review it, mark it up, tell them, how it needs to be revised. And so you want to get that a few days ahead of your actual deadline. You're going to set a flat fee price for the project. And now this is where a lot of lawyers say, hold up, what did you just say? Flat fee? I work in an hourly world. And you can still work in an hourly world and do your projects through us on a flat fee basis. So think of it this way. Let's say you have this motion for summary judgment. And in your head, you've written 100 of these, maybe 1,000. You know that this motion is probably something that would take around 8 to 10 hours of work if you were going to do it. So I would say ballpark it, okay, 8 to 10 hours. Let's just go with 10 hours. Let's say you're willing to pay the freelancer $75 to $100 an hour. So you would just set your flat fee somewhere between $750 and $1,000. Obviously, if this is like on an IP case and it's super complicated issues, you're going to go higher. If it's something that you think is pretty straightforward, you might go lower. But maybe a nice fee of $800 seems right to you in this situation. Okay, you're going to come down here and tag the area of law that applies. So you can see we have pretty much every area of law under the sun. If you find something that we don't have, let me know and we can add it. But let's say this happened to be, I think we're going to be coming up on some landlord-tenant litigation. I'm trying to find that. Landlord-tenant, there it is. So landlord-tenant, I would tag that. I would tag litigation, things like that. So what that's going to do is it's going to help us start to funnel our network of freelancers to find the right one for you. So currently we have over 2,800 freelancers in a whole wide variety of practice areas. Obviously, not all of them have done landlord-tenant litigation. So if you put this project up and you tag these areas, we're only going to send notice about this out to those people who have specified that they have experience in landlord-tenant litigation. You're also going to come down and set what type of work this is. So a motion would obviously be a pleading. Great. Some of our freelancers only want to do research if they're moonlighting from their day job. Other people only want to write pleadings because they'd love to argue and be persuasive and do that type of written work. You're going to tag how complicated it is. And then last, you have the option to post it to the marketplace. So if you're new to the system, this is what you would do. Or if you have done other work through the system and found a freelancer you like, then you would tag it to someone on your team if you wanted them to do it. So let's say, I say this was a different type of team, but we could tag it right to Matt. Second step is where you're going to put a little bit more detail about the scope of the project. And so obviously you don't want to go into anything too confidential here, but you want to set forth, hey, I need this motion for summary judgment. I have, extensive correspondence with the opposing party that's going to go into, you're going to need to review that. You might need to do some case law research or code research. I think that this motion is going to be about 12 pages when it's done. And, whatever details you want to provide, give them enough flavor so they understand the scope of what they're agreeing to do if they apply to this project. If you happen to be a Clio user, we do have an integration with Clio where this is where you would sync it to that specific case and matter. I won't go into that in a whole lot of detail because I don't know how many Clio users we have on this. Step 3, when you click forward, would be just agreeing to the terms of service. Step 4 is where you're going to input your information about the conflict check. So that there is a built-in conflict check that really makes it smooth to make sure there's no problems there before you move forward with your freelancer. So that's getting the project posted. And I'm not keeping an eye on the chat, Mike, so I'm going to trust if we have questions come up, if you could let me know, that'd be fantastic. But so once the project is posted, we are not going to pick the person for you. You get to pick your own freelancer. So again, you're going to stay in control. So you're going to come over here. This is a project
I have a quick question, if I could. Just as we're going through the process, one of the things that I'm always concerned about is if I'm going to reach out and have somebody do some work on a project, not only do I need to, of course, make sure that there's no conflict, depending on my retainer agreement and how it's worded, I probably will need to reach out to my client and make sure that they're okay with, either a specific individual, or if you have it, worded appropriately, depending on which jurisdiction you're in, there's probably a lot of concern and a lot of issues with reaching out and having somebody else do work for a client. Do you guys talk about that? Have you addressed that with the different states or different attorneys?
We have, and I think you hit the nail on the head. Some states want, really the only one that has some really specific rules about that is Texas. I'm not aware of anything that we need to be extra cautious of in Minnesota, but you were absolutely right that it's a best practice to include some language about that in your engagement agreement, fee agreement, whatever you want to call it. And so we have a blog on that. If you go over here to back to the main homepage to our blog, and it's here, it's from May of 2018, revising your engagement agreement for the use of law clerks. We have some suggested language to drop in there just as a best practice, just to kind of have it in your standard agreement. That way it frees you up and gives you some discretion to come in and use those freelance lawyers when you feel it's best appropriate for the case. It's similar, like I know a lot of firms have similar discretionary language like that, saying, hey, I'm going to be the main partner overseeing your case, but I'm going to have discretion to delegate work related to your case to my paralegals, my assistants, my associate attorneys, my law clerks, whatever. So, but yeah, absolutely, great point. I'm glad you brought that up.
And one of the questions that popped up is, of course, wondering how many people simply bill this time out as anonymous law clerk time. Mm-hmm. Or in knowing the variety of ways law clerk users bill the time. I think that's one of those that really comes down to how do you specify in your retainer agreement? How do you make sure to communicate appropriately with your client? I think that there are plenty of ways that people could go through and add this onto the bill sheet or the timesheet,
right? But
not all of them are necessarily ethical.
Right. So what the ethics rules say on that, and again, I'm not aware of any specific rules are any different in Minnesota, but the ethics rules say that you are allowed to bill a freelance lawyer's time to your client at a reasonable market rate. And so that's the test. So what is reasonable is going to be different in Minnesota versus California or New York. It's going to depend on the practice area. It's going to depend on if you happen to hire a freelance lawyer that's been practicing 5 years to do a research memo. Great, you're probably not going to bill them out at a very high rate because they've been practicing only 5 years. If you happen to find a freelancer who's been practicing 25 years and is really well versed in this, complicated area of constitutional law, then you're probably going to bill them out at a little bit higher rate. So the test to be mindful of is reasonable market rate, and knowing that can vary a lot depending on the practice area and the type of work involved. But, you know, and I'm glad you brought that up, because even though we are putting the project up on LawClerk at a flat fee, our freelancers do still keep track of their time. They're required to do that, and you'll get a timesheet from them when they complete that project. The timesheet will have the date, a description of the work, and the amount of time they spent doing that work. And what we encourage our folks to do is then pull that into their agreement, saying, you know, Law Clerk, Jane Smith, date work, description, and then they set that reasonable market rate. But you can absolutely bill the freelance lawyer's time to your client at a reasonable market rate, so that you can, A, not only get work off of your own to-do list, you can leverage their time, but you can also generate additional revenue into your firm the same way that big firms have done that for years with their, you know, giant fleets of associates. And so it can really be a game changer for solo attorneys or small firms who are, you know, burning the midnight oil, working a ton of hours and need help but don't know where to get it. Maybe there's not a lot of attorneys to hire in your town if you're in a rural area. I grew up in a town of 3,000 people. I get that. There were 2 lawyers in my town that I remember when I was growing up. But not even that, but just using the freelance lawyers here, a lot of times you're able to connect with a freelancer who has a much higher level of expertise in a specific area of law that you wouldn't be able to tap into hiring a newbie associate straight out of school who's, you know, just getting their feet wet. So it's definitely a game changer.
And you know, digging into the ethics a little bit more.
Sure.
You know, I'm not sure specifically in regards to Minnesota, but I will say, you know, occasionally we see reports of attorneys not discussing with their clients that another attorney is going to be working. You know, how much of it, and this is Minnesota specific, I suspect. So how much of it is we need to go through and let our client know this is the attorney that will be doing work for you, as opposed to I have a freelancer that's going to be doing work, or, you know, another attorney or associate. So
for sure. So the test really comes down to what work are you asking the freelance lawyer to perform on your behalf? If you're hiring a freelance lawyer to go attend a deposition for you and take that deposition on behalf of your client, obviously attending and taking a deposition is going to cause that freelance lawyer to engage in the practice of law. Our site is not built for that. So, as an aside, we don't do any appearance work.
That's too bad. I was going to sign up to go do a bunch of appearance work.
Yeah, you're going to get your mask on and rush back to court and take depos. Yeah. So the test, as I know it, is if you're hiring a freelancer to actually do work that would cause them to engage in the practice of law on behalf of your client, then you are required to get the client's express consent, preferably in writing, and get their permission. However, if you're hiring a freelance lawyer to do things like research, drafting documents, helping with discovery, under your direct supervision, in the background under your supervision, then they are not engaging the practice of law on behalf of your client, because they're not signing the final document that's going to go off to the court. You're still going to review it and ship it off. And so that's really the test: is the work they need to do for your client engaging them in the practice of law or not? And that's going to be how you figure out if you need to go get express consent from your client to proceed that way or not. So.
And I will just give a quick plug. If there are questions, or if you are concerned and you're watching this, the Minnesota Lawyers Professional Responsibility, or the Office of Lawyers Professional Responsibility, does have an advisory line. Use the advisory line. If you ever run into questions, is this ethical? Contact the advisory line.
There you go. We also, on our homepage, if you come down, this is the homepage, we have this UPL, Unauthorized Practice of Law Ethics White Paper. And that we go into a deep dive, all 50 states, state-by-state survey, along with the model rules on what you need to be mindful of if you're concerned about that. So this is like, I don't know how many pages, it's a big document, but we've got all the nitty-gritty details from Minnesota in there too. So that's a great resource if you want to look at that.
So jumping directions, just because
sure.
I'm asking a ton of questions. Jumping directions a little bit, as far as confidentiality is concerned, and I'm assuming that you're about to get into this when contacting, going back and forth with your law clerk, but is this information that goes through the law clerk website? I mean, does the law clerk website have access to this confidential material?
It does not. It does not. We have no back-end access. That's why we have attorneys call us all the time and they're like, well, you know, in my chat with this law clerk, I told them this and just look it up. And I'm like, we're like, we can't. So no, we cannot access any of this. And neither can our developers. And all of the data is stored and secured on Amazon Web Services, which is the highest level of security encryption that you can get for legal data. That's what NASA uses. It's the highest level we can get. So, you know, for those of you who do your due diligence on the security levels of the service providers you use, I always like to note that we are on AWS. So, great. But yeah, so when you post the project, you're going to come in, you're going to review the applicants, and we give you some pretty cool data to help you find the right person. You can sort them by location. You can sort them by how many projects they've completed, by their highest rating. And so those are a couple of data points to help narrow it down. I always like to look at Lisa's profile here. So you can come in here. If you click here, if you click here, you can see her resume. All of the freelancers are required to provide a resume. If you click here, you're going to see a writing sample. So especially if you're hiring someone for a task like a motion for summary judgment, you want to make sure that they can write very persuasively, concisely, make a point, keep to the relevant topics. And then most importantly, if you scroll down, all of the freelancers on our site are reviewed and rated when they complete work. So the rating skills exceeded expectations, met, or did not meet. Our goal on every project is met. The majority of our ratings are coming in the exceeded category. We're seeing that did not meet expectations in less than 1% of projects. And this is on thousands of projects that are going through the site. So we have a really high success rate, but I always like to highlight to folks that if you try us out and for some reason you are not satisfied, we did not meet your expectations, we do have a satisfaction guarantee on every single project. So we're going to get your money back to you. If we have time, we're going to get another freelancer to get that work done for you. But I don't want you to have any hesitation to try it out, knowing that we are going to back it up with that satisfaction guarantee. So, but let's say you look at all the different candidates, you decide you like Lisa the best, you're going to hit assign, okay? The moment you hit that assign button is the moment that we're going to charge your credit card for the flat fee price that you set. But we're also going to hold that money in an escrow account until you tell us that the work's done and that you're happy with it. And that's what's going to trigger the freelancer getting paid is you notifying us that the work is done and that you're happy with it. And then also hitting assign is what's going to trigger first for Lisa to go in and review your conflict list to make sure she doesn't have a conflict, and secondarily to sign a confidentiality agreement, which is standard for every single project. So that's another layer that we've put in there. So let's say you posted your project, went through your applicants, you picked the best one. What's it look like once you're in process? And so here's a project that's in the works where the attorney's been matched up with the freelance law clerk. You can see over on the left side, there's a chat portal where you can type messages like, hi, let's get to work. You can upload documents through the document repository, again, stored on AWS. You can see that there's time records, so that's where, there's none in here yet on this one, but that's where they would be keeping track of their time. And then also I just like to highlight at this point, if you click her photo, once you're matched up, we do give you their direct email and phone number, so that if you prefer to just email a couple of documents or a Dropbox link, you can do that and then say, hey, can we jump on the phone for 20 minutes and talk through this? Because certainly sometimes it's a lot more productive to talk through instructions than, have something get lost in translation over emails. So there's a lot of different options for communication. We want to make sure that attorneys are communicating. And now, a lot of our power users are, they've now found their preferred team of freelancers. And so they've gotten to know those folks. A lot of times they text back and forth. I mean, we see every mode of communication you can imagine, which is pretty cool. I'm trying to think what other big topic we hit a lot of the big stuff. But I guess I always like to talk about a few examples of how we're seeing folks use us and really succeeding. So one example I love to give is one of our top users is a woman in a pretty small town in Wisconsin. I think her town's like 12 or 15,000 people. So compared to my little hometown of 3,000, it's a big city. But she's a solo. She signed up about 2 years ago now, has now completed hundreds and hundreds of projects. She has a general practice. So, you know, in her practice, on a Monday, she might be doing some estate planning work. On Tuesday, it might be family law. Wednesday, it might be bankruptcy. Thursday, it might be a real estate deal. You know, Friday, she's handling a DUI. So she's got a pretty wide general practice. And so what she's done is she's built up one of these teams for each of those areas of law. So she's got 2 or 3 freelancers on her family law team, 2 or 3 on the bankruptcy team, 2 or 3 on the, you know, general litigation team. And so whenever she gets a new matter in on one of these, of course, she's the person meeting with the client, getting the information. And then she's immediately going to connect with one of her freelancers on the specific team saying, hey, I need you to write this document. Here are the specifics, you know, do it like you did for that other client or whatever. And so in essence, she's built up about 10 to 12 virtual associates, each with very specific knowledge in their area of law. And when you compare and contrast that type of an arrangement with if she were going to go hire an associate full-time, you know, who knows if she can even find someone that's qualified in her area. B, she's certainly not going to find someone who has the level of experience in each of those areas of law that these different virtual associates do. So, you know, this has been a game changer for her. And it's funny to me because we've asked her multiple times very nicely if she would give us a testimonial, because we'd love for her to tell her story. Like we tell it in very broad, you know, generalities, but she's repeatedly says she won't because she doesn't want her competitors to know about it because it's her secret weapon. So that's her story. Another one I love that highlights the level of expertise you can find is another top user is this guy. He lives in Texas, is barred in 2 other states, has a federal litigation practice. He works out of his home, virtual practice, and he has a really specialized area of law of education discrimination litigation. Through our site, he has found and connected one freelancer in particular, who is, by day, she works for a school district in Tennessee. And I think that she came on our site because the story I heard was like one of her kids needed braces, and she was like, how am I going to get an extra $5,000 to pay for braces, you know? And so rather than go drive Uber, she thankfully found Law Clerk. And so now, you know, she works for the school district by day. By night and weekend, she moonlights, she freelances with the permission of her daytime employer. They've said you can freelance, just not in the state of Tennessee. So how else could she find freelance work in her area of law other than a platform like this? And so she now, you know, does freelance work drafting for him on behalf of his clients, even though by day she's using her knowledge for the other side, the school districts. So really interesting way that we've connected a couple of people in different areas of the country with a highly specialized knowledge bank of education law. So there's just a couple of examples to get some ideas going. But Mike, how are we doing on time? I don't want to hold people up if they have other things to do, but I'm happy to answer any questions if we're getting any.
We're good. We can go over. I will paste in the event code again for folks who are on the phone. Looks like we've got a few folks just listening in. The code is 303311.
Sure.
We did have a question about
Okay.
whether or not there are corporate clients using Law Clerk.
There are. And so we're seeing, so we have when you look at big law, big corporate clients, there's another similar company to us that is just focused on those folks. You know, we're really the small law alternative. So we see a number of smaller family-owned companies with like one attorney in their legal department absolutely turning to us. It's a much more affordable way for them to get the outside legal work and help done that they need without getting huge bills from whatever law firm they may be using as outside counsel in the past. So it is absolutely a resource for corporate clients. We kind of tend to be one that smaller legal departments are using us, but we do have that work going through, and we have a number of GC experienced freelancers, especially from the northeast part of the country, you know, New York, New Jersey. For some reason, we're heavy there. Ohio, we have a really great GC freelancer from Ohio. I guess we also have one from Utah, now that I'm thinking about it, though. So absolutely, if you want to talk about that, would be happy to answer questions.
And another question that popped up is, are you seeing lawyers in transactional practice such as leasing M&A using this service?
Yeah, we sure are. So of course, the service is litigation heavy just because of the nature of litigation. But that is about 65 to 70% of our work. The rest is transactional. So we're seeing leases, all sorts of agreements, employment agreements, employee handbooks, contracts, deeds, estate planning documents. So we do see about, 25 to 30% of the work is more transactional in nature.
So our question for you, since we started the topic with the bar exam,
Yes.
I'm going to take us back there. We have these states that are saying they're going to give diploma privileges or temporary licensing or things like that. Any idea how, my assumption is law clerk, when we go in and sign up and say that, you're going to work as a law clerk, that you're maybe checking bar numbers or you're doing some type of verification that this person is actually a licensed attorney in the jurisdiction that they say. Any idea how you guys are going to approach that situation?
Well, I suppose if the state bar gives them their, if they have a bar number with the state bar and their status is in good standing, we're not going to know anything different. That's totally different. But my understanding with the Utah one that was going to give people licenses, it was provisional on kind of working under the guidance and supervision of an actual licensed attorney for a set amount of time. I don't remember how much time, but our standard is you got a bar number and you're in good standing, no disciplinary problems. All right, come on the site, prove yourself. Really beyond that, it's the reviews and ratings that have the most impact for our freelancers and their ability to get work.
So when you guys are checking on, are you still in good standing, things like that? Mm-hmm. How long does it take for somebody to go from applying to be a law clerk or putting in their credentials for that to be verified and get up and running on the site?
Sure. If it's, during normal business hours on a weekday, less than an hour usually. Weekend, a couple hours. We do still watch it over the weekend, but it's pretty quick.
So. I've heard folks say, this may be apocryphal, I'm not sure, but that because as you say, the reputation is important. There's yes. It's a competitive marketplace. You need to jump in and take maybe some lower paying jobs to build up your reputation. And that's one strategy on the law clerk side, is to speedily produce quality results on low paying work on the front end to develop your reputation. Is that a sound strategy? Or
that has been the strategy that's worked for a number of freelancers, to get a few reviews to get kind of on the board. That being said, certainly if you've done appellate work, high-end appellate work for a number of years, we see freelancers come out of the blue and suddenly get a really high-paying freelance job because they come on and their credentials shine for that type of appellate work. Plus, I didn't really show it, but the freelancer is allowed to send a message when they apply for a specific project. It's basically the equivalent of a tweet. And so it's a short message where you could say, hey, I argued that exact issue 2 years ago to the Minnesota Supreme Court and won. I'd love to put that knowledge to use for your client. So, it's messages like that. When you see that message come across on an application, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to look at that person really seriously, even though they have no other projects through the site yet. And if it's someone who's been practicing, 10, 15 plus years, those people do get that work still. But, those are kind of not as common, but we do see it happen. We had a guy come on and post a criminal appellate brief for $15,000, and actually a law professor who'd never done any work before came on and applied for it. So yeah, so we have law professors on there too.
That's great.
Two questions here. One of them is curious about demand. Do law clerks find enough work to stay busy most of the day, week, month?
Yeah.
However long this happens.
So some of our dedicated freelancers do. These are folks that have been with us for a couple of years now. What I can tell you about those folks that are kind of career freelancers is that in addition to taking on projects through our site, they typically are also working directly for 1, 2, 3 direct clients, direct attorneys who have steady flow for them. But even those direct clients don't have enough to keep them busy all the time, or as busy as the freelancer would like to be. But we do have a number of quite a few career freelancers who, in addition to their 1 to 3 direct clients, do work through us, and that keeps them full-time busy. So it is possible. You know, one of these guys lives in Hawaii. One of these guys lives in Costa Rica now. So talk about living the dream. I mean, like, that's something I guess a lot of us aspire to, but it's right now, you know, demand is growing. We've been, you know, obviously we moved our entire team remote early March, and we've stayed steady and growing. We just had a really solid, powerful week with a lot of new users on last week. So word's getting out there. We're growing all the time. We're hoping to have even more projects on there available, but they go fast. That's the other thing too, is a lot of people sign up and they come on and they're like, there's nothing on here right now. We're like, well, no, there's been like 30 projects in the last couple hours. They just go fast. They get assigned quick. And so then they disappear off the board. But you got to stay on top of it, monitor them, apply quick if there's something that you're interested in.
Is there alerting functionality in the Law Clerk?
Yes, there is. Right now it's email only. We just had some problems, tech problems with our email system that we're trying to remedy. We're also looking at hopefully building an app that would be really just an alert notification style app yet this year, but got to build it first. So.
How do you address or kind of, yeah, I guess the right way would be to address the concerns of the solo or small attorney that says, you know, hey, I got this project, I could use some help with it, but I feel like there's a perception for most attorneys, maybe it's just me, that's like, I know how to do this project. I could get this done. Maybe I'm a little swamped, but I don't want to be seen as reaching out for help. I don't want people to know that I'm trying to outsource some of this business. You know, how do you kind of address or talk about that?
Well, certainly if they're worried about like a competitor knowing it, I highly doubt your competitor's on here as a freelancer trying to pick up work, scoping you out. There's no like scrollable part of the website where you can see everybody that's on here. It's private in that regard, because we know that some lawyers are sensitive to that. But the flip side, you know, we as a profession need to be less worried about asking for help. Help is okay. And especially, you know, if you're that busy, that's a sign that your firm is growing, that you're doing well, that you're succeeding. So yeah, who cares if you know, if you don't want to do the traditional hiring route, then this is another smart option. And there's no way for someone to know that you have an account with us. And in terms of clients, we have a number of our users now, their clients actually tell them, hey, I want that same guy on Law Clerk to write this motion too that did the last one. Like, they know about it. It's not some sort of a little secret or whatever. But clients in general, what we find from our own experience as attorneys in talking with our users is that clients, they want you to be there at court, at the negotiation table, at the deposition. They don't care who does the research and the writing in the background, as long as you're reviewing it and putting your final touches on it. You know, the grunt work that's really time consuming, they know that you're probably handing off to a paralegal or an associate attorney of some sort, whether you're doing that to an associate that sits and eats and breathes in your office or a virtual associate who has a higher level experience. They don't really care as long as you're their person there with them at the courtroom, at the deposition, et cetera. So I'm
going to ask one more question from the Q&A came in a few moments ago. Interesting question related to our 5.4 rule change conversation a couple of weeks ago. CPA firm, so an accountant. Clients all over the country advise clients on estate planning and quarterback process, not a law firm. We can't draft documents. I'm assuming Law Clerk, not a resource for a CPA firm, right?
Nope. Nope. Yeah. If we had a CPA try to sign up, we would say, sorry, not for you. This is just for attorneys. And the same vein, as you can probably imagine, a couple times a month we get a consumer who tries to sign up, and you know, we know it because then they get to the line where you have to input your bar number and it's empty, or they put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and they think we're not going to know. Like, no, we make sure everybody on there is an attorney. So it's attorneys only. Sorry, consumers. Sorry, CPAs.
And there are a lot of freelancing websites out there, right? Like Upwork or is it, I forget the name of the others, but I've messed around with those myself, and they're kind of scary places, I have to say. A lot of folks looking for legal advice, calling it legal research, or and you don't have the verification process that's here. Yeah.
Exactly. We hear of attorneys that work with who they believe are other attorneys through other freelance outsource websites. But we really think that the thing that differentiates us is that we are the only one that can keep you compliant through the different precautions of making sure they're really attorneys. You know, one of the ways we do that is through our ID verification process. So if you've signed up already, you know, the last step of the verification is you have to pretend this is your driver's license, you're getting your driver's license, your phone, you have to take a selfie of you with your driver's license.
Yeah.
What we do with that, you send that into our support team, is we look at you, we make sure you match the picture on this license, and that based on the name on the license, you're an attorney in good standing. No other site does that. And so that's really the the biggest safety precaution, to make sure this is an attorney on the site.
So now what I'm hearing is I'm going to start getting spam emails telling me that they don't need prepaid cards from Walgreens. They actually need me to just take a selfie with my driver's license and bar card. Just real quick, just to keep them safe in whatever country they're trapped in.
Exactly. Yeah, they're going to need some Apple gift cards in Nigeria stat. So yeah.
All right. Thanks everyone for joining us today. I'm going to wrap us. Folks have been asking for me to repeat the code. It's 303311. That's 303311 for the folks who are on the phone. Again, thanks so much for joining us. Next week, we'll be back online with Blair Harrington at from the New Lawyer section, talking about their letter to the Board of Law Examiners. Very excited to have them. And thank you so much for getting up so early in the middle of the week. You guys are champions. So, and it's
this
a great
was
product.
well worth it. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Very excited to have you partnering with the Bar Association. Have a great week, everyone.